everybody, and welcome to From the Ground Up. I'm your host today, Karol Weyman from Outdoor Coffee Shop, and we're here today to talk with Tremco CPG Waterproofing. Jeff is an expert in the field, and he's going to help us navigate some challenges about protecting planters, fountains, rooftop amenities, decks, etc. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah. Um, can you describe your role at Tremco CPG and your background in the sealant waterproofing industry?
I'll start with my background. I've been in the waterproofing building envelope industry for about 25 years now. I started with my father's firm. He's been in the industry actually since the 70s. So I'm kind of a second generation waterproofing guy. I started in the field and worked my way in to the office managing projects. So I did that for about 11 years and then joined Tremco, 14, 15 years ago as a rep. So I started as a technical rep. Now I'm territory manager for the state of Florida, and we do all building envelope items. So Tremco is below grade. We're starting underground for basements. We're doing sealants. We're doing expansion joints, decks, pools, everything. We're basically everything on the outside, including the finishes with our drive it, metal panels, roof systems, everything basically outside of a building. Tremco focuses on. So that's our focus, what we do.
Wow, you've been in the industry a long time. You really grew up in it. So this is going to be interesting to hear your take on everything.
Yeah, lots of stories there.
Yes, right. So what are some of the common problems you're seeing in the field as it relates to installing and waterproofing planters, fountains, amenity decks, etc.?
Problems are issues. We don't have problems, right? We only have issues, and we can solve those with being as ahead of the issue as we can get, right? For example, today I was on a project. We did some site visits today, and I was on a project where everything was done properly, ready to go, water tested, completely done, and then another trade came through and decided to put somewhere around 300 holes through our waterproofing because the coordination between one trade and another, or the connection to each one of those penetrations was done much later. And now you got 4 or 5 guys standing around scratching their head, wondering what to do. So, had we coordinated this, and listen, it's construction, right? In this case, the trench drain was delayed and it was supposed to be here months ago, and we had to do this with that. And the idea is, to be as proactive as possible with these types of issues. And a lot of that has to do with communicating between your contractor, communicating between the applicator, if a consultant or engineer is involved, making sure they're aware, and then including your manufacturer rep. So folks like me who have been through this dance multiple times, where we can give answers before you kind of go too far and create havoc on the backside. So communication's key, but solving problems before they start is automatic, right? The next piece is partnering up with people that can provide those solutions, and get you ahead of the curve, not just on the communication part, but have the tools in their tool belt to fix those things. So there's certain manufacturers or certain systems that this is the only way to go. And if it's not done right, and you get to that point where you see the issue that wasn't, foreseen, or something was delayed, whatever it is being able to trust in the manufacturer and the folks like us, that they can come and solve those problems. I think that's what we have done, on our team here, is be the go-to person for waterproofing systems, right? So if you have a nice house, right, and you want to keep care of it, and you want a guy that does a great job with landscaping, or a plumber or an electrician, well, we strive to be as that person you come to when it comes to waterproofing systems. So if it's, I got a funky job with a planter connecting to a building, I want to team up with a guy who's done this 50, 60, 100 times before, so I don't step into the problems that, are associated with, this is the first time I've ever done it, and we did it backwards, and we should have done it this way. So having the troops there to do it with the leader that knows what to do is most important.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, communication just down through the whole planning of this, things are obviously gonna change, things are never gonna go as planned, and so being able to anticipate and being able to communicate that. One of my 3rd question, for you, which you've really answered, is what can contractors or even facility managers do to proactively address these problems, the common problems that you're talking about? Is there anything you wanna add to, the communication and,
Yeah, yeah.
experience?
So new construction's one thing, right? But a lot of our issues come along after the fact, right? Something that was missed, left out, damaged, or additions that occurred beyond. When it comes to property managers and existing structures, it's maintenance. It's a lot of times certain systems are really not meant to be maintained, but if any changes occur, if things happen that are going to affect the system that's in place that are working properly, then being able to bring a team together or communicate, back to communication, right? But being able to communicate, hey, we're going to be drilling a bunch of holes in your planter, or we have a bunch of work going on at the pool. We want you to come out and give us the best method for making these adjustments so that we don't damage what we have in place. Preventative maintenance is key, and getting prepared for those scenarios is best, rather than, and I'm reiterating, communicating that we can come back and give solutions before the problem actually it turns into, I got 3 feet of water in a penthouse unit. All we did was drill a couple of holes. What happened? Or something like that, right? It's a concern that is easily avoided, by just being proactive.
Right, there's so much prevention there. I mean, I think that people get, frustrated where they wanna, they don't have time. They've allowed a certain amount of time, and so if they have to drill holes and they're just trying to get through to the next job, they have pressure to do that. They don't even realize that they're gonna be causing, instead of, a simple solution, is gonna become very complex when they could have really had a phone call, or they could have just been able to reach out to the right people. So I think that's interesting. That
We
seems
had we
tough.
had one like 2, 3 weeks ago where they went and had to add certain hangers for pipes, and they went and drilled through conduit, and they fried an electrical panel, $120,000 worth of, of equipment fried, because they just thought they were doing what their boss told them to do, right? But had we just kind of paid attention to a couple things, we would have been a little bit better off, and, a lot uh, less concerned about having to come back and reinstall electrical panels worth a lot of money.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for having contingency funding, but usually you're not really prepared for that. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
What's the worst that could happen,
You're
right?
right.
What's the worst that could happen,
Well, it
It's
sounds
no
like the
big
worst
deal.
happened, so it's
Yeah,
good to
in
have
this
that
case, it
communication.
was, and those are the
Wow.
horror stories you remember for a long time, but that's also what carries you through to the next job or the next experience or whatever. You can share that and say, "Hold off before you go do something like that. Let's take a look, because this one time on this one job, this happened, and it caused chaos," and that'll get people to back off and say, "You know what? Maybe we need to rethink this." So waterproofing is such an important part of construction, in the sense that, we joke about it, but cost cutting is a factor these days for, you coming from the GC world, value engineering and all these other things, right? And you're looking to find ways to do the same thing for less. And sometimes things get left out that really shouldn't have, number one. But number 2, when we hire the cheaper sub, or we use the lesser cost system, and then you're stuck with the bag for whatever the issue is. Now you're kind of scrambling, and these issues cost way more to fix, right? The thought is 3 times as much to fix it if we just did it right the first time. And when it comes to waterproofing, you don't get sued for, cheaper doors, or electric outlets, or whatever it is. But when you try and go cheaper with waterproofing, that's where the lawsuit's going to come in. Moisture issues are the number one cause of lawsuits in construction. And, do you really want to play with fire with that? That's, a concern for everyone.
Literally, we're
Mhm.
literally, right? So, switching gears just a little bit, a lot of people assume standing water on concrete is harmless. What is ponding water really telling us about what's going on beneath the surface?
Okay. So, yeah, lots of fun with this one, right? So, Technologies for waterproofing systems have advanced greatly over the years, and the big key to waterproofing is not to hold water forever, it's to move water to the drains, right? Which means adequate slope means the water moves across the membrane to a proper drainage system that's designed by a plumbing engineer, and they do everything right, whether it be pedestal paver systems that move water quickly, or split slab systems where we use drainage mat and tie into drains, whatever it is, the idea is to move water, right? Ponding is a natural thing that occurs in construction when people don't do everything perfect. And we know it's not perfect. We hear that word tolerance all the time, right? We hear tolerance. So a lot of below grade systems and the technology we use might be more effective in ponding conditions. However, not everything we do is covered. Right. A lot of the systems we do, whether it be in a parking garage or on balconies or in certain areas where if we don't get proper pitch in construction, then we hold water, and ponding can do a few things. It can degrade the membrane. It can have, deleterious effects on the system in general. And, we'll give warranties up to a point, but if we have ponding over time, it's going to do a lot of negative things to that system. It also is unsightly. Right. So if you have ponding, then that's where all the dirt goes. That's where all the nastiness sits, and you have mildew and growth of all different types, which when you have open garages or balconies where I want to sit at my 50th level penthouse and look out onto whatever I'm looking out on, if I see a big black spot in the middle of my deck because water sits there and all the dirt collects and all the mildew grows, that's a problem just for everybody that sees and use our system. So it's ideal to make sure that all that is done before we go do our waterproofing. So it falls into a catch spot. It's really difficult in the sense that the architect's going to show slope. The contractor is going to say it has to be built with slope, but post tension, different types of different types of method of construction are going to sometimes just have areas where we have ponding, and what we want to do is really head that off at the pass by filling in any bird baths or creating sloping decks, filling in areas where we know might hold water and getting that water to move or at least dry out over time faster than, a quarter inch bird bath in the center of a balcony. That's going to be a problem. That'll be a problem. So making it flush at a minimum is what we want, but proper slope is in every building code everywhere around across the country. They're going to tell you need slope because they know better.
Sure. So when it comes to fixing this ponding water and the bird bath, etc., how do you determine whether it's a simple drainage issue versus a full repitch or waterproofing system overhaul?
It's really a case by case basis, right? Sometimes we don't know until after it's done, right? Sometimes the concrete might be porous enough where we don't see as much ponding. Then as soon as we close it off with a deck coating or membrane, now we see how much ponding we have, right? So being proactive by sort of when you pressure clean, you're finding water hanging out. Those are the areas we want to fill in with some epoxy. This has been all about being proactive. That's a different type of podcast, but there are repair methods that we use, where we'll come in and flash it back. And then without getting too technical, it's always better to be on the front side, making sure that we have proper pitch so that when we're waterproofing something, it's going with that flow rather than circling back and figuring it out after the fact. That's much more difficult. If it's found down the line, the aesthetics usually are affected because we're trying to make repairs in sections, and you never can't see, or it's that thing where every time you see that patch, you'll see just the patch. You won't see everything else. And so ideally, when it comes especially to exposed coatings, anything that's going to be visible to a unit owner or any kind of owner, anybody, you want to make sure it's done right prior so that when it's turned over, it looks cherry. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And for new construction, that is a lot easier than that. Like if you're talking about renovations, what are the biggest risks when structures try to add rooftop greenery, pools, dog parks, etc.?
Well, it's the dollars typically in that sense, right? So, if you're involved in a project, restoration or whatever, an engineer typically will try to be, you know, you wanna make sure that the engineer's aware that there could be issues with slope and to carry that money so that they're not having to go back to an owner or a board and say, "Hey, we thought we had this, but now we have that," and the costs associated with this are gonna be so great that it just I mean, that'll turn a project sour really fast. So from the design professionals, side, that's where it's most important because they're the ones that are gonna go ask for, "Hey, I want it sloped, but the guy doing the work wants it sloped, and he wants to get paid for it." And so, after it all starts, it's a lot more expensive than when it's, coming at the bid phase. So it's key to this industry, it's key to have dollars set aside, and whether it be a unit owner or a board from a condo or whatever it is, or a building, whatever, property managers having that thought that, it's just like doing a home repair, home project. The budget's the budget, but you have to keep in mind this could get beyond and scope creep can happen and all that. And if you're proactive by saying, "Hey, this is what the scope will cost," and you include those types of, repair dollars, then it makes it much smoother when they have to go back and ask for the money. Or it's already sitting there ready to be spent.
Right. Well, so you talked about this a little bit, but to clarify, what should owners and design professionals know before agreeing to these types of additions?
To start, hire a good engineer. Don't hire the cheapest guy, right? Somebody with experience doing the same type of jobs that you're doing with examples. And I'd ask for pictures, right? Show me examples, but not just go down there and talk to them. I'd like to see how the whole entire process started, right? If it was a parking garage repair job, what did you do for all the repairs and how does each phase go? And a lot of the engineers, especially here where we're at, they have, like, slide decks of different processes of what they do to help explain it to whether it be a property management firm or even like a board of directors for condos, right? You have 10 or 12 people sitting in a room, they wanna know what they're spending their money on. This is my money, I earned my whole life, we're retired, I live down in Florida, right? And this is a common thing. The easiest way to understand things is pictures, right? So understanding, hey, this is 60 line items worth of things all worth this money, but what is that? What is it going to look like? And a lot of what we do is not like an interior decorator. Here's a picture of what it'll look like, or here's the color of the paint on the in the wall. A lot of what we do is hidden. They're hidden dollars, and that's tough to get from folks that if I'm not going to see it every day, why am I going to spend all the money on this? It's tough. And the flip side of that is if we don't do the repairs now, it's only going to cost you more later as time goes on, right? And the reason we're doing it is to protect that structure by using Tremco products or membranes and systems so that you're not having to spend more money beyond what we're looking at talking now. Having those kind of basic discussions with pictures to show what can happen and how the repairs are made is essential. I've seen it. I've been in these board meetings. It makes perfect sense, and your head starts going like this when you're trying to understand what, column and beam repair is and coatings and membranes. Now you see what it is and why it's important. Now I understand why we're doing this. Now I see the point of this because I pull into the garage and I see that concrete and it's falling apart and that doesn't look good. Now I know why,
Right. It's what's below it. It's what's hidden. I mean, I think you
Mhm,
made a perfect point about how it looks really nice up above. It looks really nice what you see because you did the system correctly, and that's something that
mhm.
you can't. It's priceless to have a good system like Tremco and all the different products that support that for just having a successful project that lasts as long as it's supposed to last without all the problems that can happen with weather and just everything. There's so much.
And
So it's nice to get a system that's going to really work for you um, right off the bat, so you're not dealing with additional problems later. So where do you see the waterproofing industry headed in the next 10 years? I know that, uh, you know, everybody has kind of created more of these outdoor living structures and doing a lot, and everything has become so expansive and more complicated. And where do you see the waterproofing industry? fitting into that and headed.
It's really interesting. I come from a market down in South Florida where, and a lot of people think that South Florida is like years ahead of other areas of the country, different regions. But what's unique to Florida is the amount of exterior usable space that we find on these buildings, where a lot of the mega projects, these monument jobs that we're doing, are not just a deck with a roof on it, wasted space. So you'll find pools, you'll find spas, you'll find dog walk areas, you'll find all different spots where I think traditionally we might have just slapped a roof up there and called it a day. That area now becomes usable space that is functional for multitude of reasons. Pickleball courts, everything. Garden spaces are important. I think you can go down a whole separate road about, capturing water with green roofs and all those types of systems and why that's important. It's something that I think we're actually behind on, in the sense that there are areas of Miami Beach that get flooded in significant rains because the amount of runoff from all the buildings that are there. And had we had some of those areas to capture some of that water, I think it greatly reduce some of the issues that we see. That's very recent. It's top of mind because it just happened, right? Key West and other areas. But the industry as a whole, I see it growing. I see it expanding, for those reasons. People are finding ways to make, what was a roof into an area where residents can. It sells units, is the truth. I'm not sure that in a 60-story tower you're going to have every residence and every out there at the pool every day. But if I'm going to go to a space and I see what is offered from the building, then it's something that's going to draw people in to live and be a part of a community, if it's a tower or whatever it is. The second piece of that is the technologies. And that's something that Tremco's focused on. It's part of the creed with innovation and moving forward. So it's a very touchy line when it comes to waterproofing, because you have two sides of it. You want to innovate and you want to grow so that you're moving the industry forward and doing things that are better. But a lot of our industry is tried and true methods that are, well earned reputation for a good system, right? So having a blend is really interesting, in the sense that we still install hot applied waterproofing, and that technology is 40 years old, right? I mentioned before that my dad was in this industry. He was doing hot applied waterproofing in like the 80s on projects, and those are still, proven, tested methods. However, they have their limitations. And so taking some of the technology and the benefits of those systems and then using the newer technologies, it's just like the car you drive today. You're not driving a car from the 80s. It could get you from point A to point B, but look at all the things that can happen, with a vehicle that you get off the lot today, and the safety, and how much we've learned in terms of chemistry over all these years makes it very exciting for people like me, because we're able to see some of these new technologies, strip away things that were negative, keep the things that were positive, grow to newer things. And now we have systems that can provide longer warranties, that do better in weather conditions. If it's our below grade system is a amphibia, it's been around about 10 years now across the world, but we were stuck. The industry as a whole was either using a sheet applied system or a bentonite system, and those had very significant limitations. We took all the strengths from those systems and incorporated into a new system, and now we're able to provide longer warranties, better systems, more user friendly applications, everything about it, by using everything we've used in the past, by making that technology and knowledge push us forward. So it's really exciting. I take the last 10 years and see how everything's changed. And then you say 10 years from now, I have no idea what we're going to do. I'm sure we'll still be doing some of the things we do now, but it'll be incredible what the future holds, given the size of the industry that we work in.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you've been in the industry for so long, so you do get to see the progression and how amazing it is, and the new people that come in, the new kids, and that have just fallen in love with waterproofing and outdoors or indoor, everything that they do. All the contractors, they don't remember what it was like how poor the systems were, how, when you think of something that's been, kind of revolutionized, now things are even further than that with the technology. It's becoming faster and faster, to get better products because of the technology, which you really just talked about. So that's pretty cool.
It makes me
Um,
feel old. Yes,
no,
exactly.
me too. I understand, but, we're still kicking, so I think that's good, right? So if a contractor is gonna be, using the supplies and using all the systems that Tremco offers, do you guys have a support, like, for people that, what type of support does Tremco offer to complement their waterproofing products?
It's a good question because 'cause I'm a great person to ask. So one of the things that Tremco did right when I started was created a regional technical representative position. So prior to this, typically your technical staff that was there to work with you, you obviously have your sales guys, and every organization's different, right? So positives and negatives, but as a whole, typically you have your sales rep that's there really to promote the materials and support it, but they weren't really boots on the ground for a lot of manufacturers. And coming from the contracting side, I knew who would go to a job site and I knew who would show up in loafers and stand at the car and say, I don't know, I can't go in there, right? So having regional technical representation is what I think sets Tremco aside in the sense that we have a very large technical representative side. We're not commission based. We're all work for the company. We're salaried employees, and then we have a subset of us that are technical representatives that do trainings, that do field observation reports, that do everything that certain sales guys who are trying to work with architects and engineers and get specifications and are involved in the meetings. I can't always be on sites walking around seeing what's done. But in Florida specifically, we have two well-trained individuals. Both of them came from the field. Those are just some of the examples of who we have across the country, right? And these guys, I believe, are essential to our success. If we have a project go bad because of a bad application, that's usually more reflected on us than the guys. Okay. And
Yeah.
so if we're there to train our local applicator staff who, the labor shortage is very well known across all segments of business. But if we're able to train new people that are coming in all the time, if we're able to work with them in the field, if we're able to help point out easier ways to do things or the right way to do things, and we're present, that gives us an advantage over the others in the sense that I'm not just going to be the guy that says, just send me some pictures and I'll tell you if it's good or not. Right. I want to say, I'll be out there tomorrow. We'll figure it out and we'll make this go away. That's what people want to hear. And so boots on the ground is probably the most important thing that Tremco does. On top of just, the connection warranties, the building envelope warranties, everything else that is a standard from Tremco and has been that way from the start. I think our boots on the ground is the most important.
Yeah, I think that puts, a lot of trust in the contractors that are working with Tremco products, and I think that's wonderful. So if people wanna hear more about, like, how to get a hold of Tremco products and where they're located, like, how can they get Tremco products?
Good question. We're mostly sold through distribution. We do have segments of business that sell direct, but basically reach out on the website. There's a find your distributor link, Tremco CPG or TremcoSealants.com. Drive it's on there as well. They're on the same vein. Nudura's our ICF division. We all have people that are local, so the website's the best way to find us. If you're in the industry, you should know already that Tremco's a pretty big name when it comes to waterproofing, but there's a lot of other segments of our business, whether it be our metal panels, our facades, our different systems, our coatings and paints, expansion joints with our will seal line. We have so many other things. A big part of what we do is, hey, I know you for this, but let me, you know me for this, excuse me, you know me for this, but did you know we do this as well? And all of a sudden it clicks that, I've been doing metal panels for years and we've been using your air barrier system behind it. But, then it's Wild West when I get in front of it. Well, let me tell you, we're fabricating the same panels and we're using our sealants and all our stuff and we're front to back with the system that nobody else is offering. That's a standout type item that is important. So I just encourage people to go to the website and see all the new things that are going on because it's really exciting.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and Tremco is on all of our, sites at the coffee shops, so we have, Roofers Coffee Shop, Metal Coffee Shop,
Oh, okay.
Coatings Coffee Shop, and Outdoor Coffee Shop, and so there's a directory
Cool.
for Tremco and other products, throughout, all of our coffee shops, so you can get a hold of information there, and it goes right to their website, and there's a lot of YouTube videos, there's tons of stuff. I mean, Tremco is, been around a long time and has been really important in the weatherproofing as well as many other areas. So I kind of our time is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we call it a day?
No, I just wanna thank you for your time, Carol. I really appreciate it. It was fun, and, I'm glad we could get this together finally and get it on the books, so thank you
Yeah,
for
me too, Jeff. Thank you so much for joining us today. And again,
Absolutely.
thanks everybody who was able to watch today. Feel free to share it with others and sign up for our newsletter. You can just click on if you go to our website, you can sign up for our e news, which is really informative and great. So until next time, please enjoy the day and thanks for joining us on From the Ground Up.
Thank you.